welcome to Bus Speakers. I'm Kush,
I'm Alex.
And I'm Cam.
and today we're going to be reviewing the new Foxygen album, Hang. Foxygen are an indie rock duo formed in 2005 in California. They've had so I've been a Foxygen fan for quite a while, and some of their older albums have been absolutely fantastic and wonderful, and they've also had some really just mind-bogglingly boring albums. But I think this one is, oh god, do I love this album. It's so good. It's so much fun to listen to. I think the old school vibe that they give in every single song, like with artists like Bob Dylan and John Lennon, and there's some Beatles influence in here. God, do I love this album. It's absolutely gorgeous. Everything about it, every song I love. That's my influence. That's me.
This album sounds like it was tailor-made for me to enjoy it. And I think a lot of people will feel like that because it's just so likable and it's got so many great elements. It sounds like a love letter to like pop from the 60s and 70s. I mean, it sounds like they turn up the Baroque and Sunshine Pop hits of those decades up to 11. And for some reason they like add some like Disney magic sort of thing to some of these songs and make them quite weird and unique. But yeah, this is just such a beautiful and sunny album that I really loved it too. I was not expecting this. I had no idea what I was expecting, but this was something else.
I'm pretty much in the middle on this album. I love Baroque pop. I especially love when modern bands try to bring back Baroque pop. I think that, we need a Baroque pop revival. But this one, it kind of felt like it was trying to be tailor-made for me, but it just like, oh, he likes this, he likes this, he likes this, let's just throw it all together in the same song and call it good. It was just really hard to keep track of stuff. There is, obviously I caught the same 60s and 70s influence that you guys did, but there's also like big band and a lot of jazz stuff like that, or swing or whatever. It's not like Miles Davis jazz or anything, but just that kind of feel to it in a lot of songs. But then they just like kept swinging back and forth between the Baroque pop, the big band, and more modern rock sounds and everything, and it was confusing. Like, not as bad as some other stuff, like there's some kinds of psych pop. I don't really want to name names because I don't want to get lynched, but just some albums I've heard where it's like one song, like in a normal 3-minute song, they just can't sit still, and just like every other 10 seconds is a different sound. And these guys weren't that extreme, but it was still like the changes were frequent enough that I just had a hard time really making sense of it and really embracing it. It was kind of just slightly off-putting, but at the same time, I listened to it a second time and I liked it a lot more. But I think maybe it's just because I was able to anticipate some of the changes that were coming and maybe make a little more sense of what they were trying to do and what they're trying to say. But at the same time, it's just like, I don't know I'm just not sure if it's worth revisiting very often with all of the confusion that it's still causing me right now.
Before we go into any songs, I wrote in my notes, right, so when I first heard this, you hear some influences, but then I wrote a mix between the Kinks, then 10cc, then Beatles, then Bowie, then like Elton John. I mean, yeah, they really do take like almost every single classic pop rock act. It sounds like maybe a best of the 1960s, 70s. Like they just bring all these elements together. And yeah, I know what you mean, that they're like trying to force people to like it because of the sound, but I'm going to take what I can get with modern music, because this is like home to me. It feels like I've heard this album a lot before hearing it, because so much of it's familiar. But I think maybe the one influence that you could maybe pin this down to, because you were saying there's a lot of like big band and lounge, elements, and I did hear that. The Kinks had an album in 1972 called Everybody's in Showbiz, which had a lot of vaudeville and, like, I don't know, big band influences in the songs, but the Kinks, they were a Baroque sunshine pop band. And, you know, it sounded like they combined those two genres together to make something somewhat unique. So having heard that, maybe I was, like, more prepared for the sudden changes than you were, maybe.
Yeah, so
I guess that's fair.
So overall, when I first listened to this album, I was not expecting this because normally Foxygen doesn't have a old school sound. So I start off with the song "Follow the Leader," and the instrumentation is really tight and danceable, and I think the way he sings and the girls in the background are fun. You're always tapping your feet or like snapping to it. And I think it's just well composed. I think if you don't have fun to this album, you're not really a human being. You don't have fun, because this is an album where like you're always smiling. I was smiling like a fucking doofus the entire time. But yeah, so like I think my favorite songs are Avalon. Avalon is my favorite because they're the old barbershop quartet kind of vibe, and there's interesting. There's like they use sound effects also in terms of music, just like the weird like the beeps and the pings and that kind of stuff. And I think it just works so well for them. And his voice sounds phenomenal when compared to other songs, other records he's done. I think this is a really good style for him. He's born like 20 years too late. Otherwise, he would have been a hit in the 80s.
Yeah, how much of ABBA's discography or hit singles are like known in the US, the guys?
You say ABBA?
Yeah.
They were definitely more popular back then. I don't think they're as popular now, like in terms of like how well is their music held up. But yeah, definitely they were more popular back in the day.
Right, their breakout hit, Waterloo. Do you know that one?
Yeah.
The Avalon. I was like, Waterloo. It's kind of the same melody. But the thing is, I don't mind it because it's like repackaged in a weird neo-psych way, in like a neon lights way. I don't mind it. Some people might, but it sounds like a weird fix of musical history, like getting all these elements together. But yeah. And this song in particular reminded me of the 70s, like hardcore. I mean, it had like saxophone towards the end, but this isn't a bad thing because this is like the peak era for music for me sometimes, like thinking old soul and funk that was happening then. I just any like nostalgia for that era I'm gonna be all aboard for.
Have you heard the song "Build Me a Buttercup"?
Yeah, it did have that as well.
I think I played them back to back, and they were almost similar in terms of just melody. And there's a reason. Like the song is stupid. Like the "Build Me a Buttercup" is a stupid song, but it's just so catchy, and you can't stop smiling. It's one of those songs where like you hear it and you automatically start singing and smiling. I think this is what Avalon as well is as well.
So it's like whenever someone uses that melody, they like can't help but like it.
Yeah, I think it's a drug of a melody.
Next song, we're kind of doing track by track, but we'll try not to. It was probably one of my favourites because I think it's something that people don't do it very much anymore, is have songs that are focused around a character.
Yeah, that's
like
true.
whenever a song's centered around a character, and this is not always true because Bob Dylan has some about some dodgy homeless people, and that's who wants to listen to that? Well, I do, but moving on. This like whenever there's a good song dedicated to characters, a good thing to build a song on. Like The Killer's "Mr. Brightside." I know that's not really the main thing people like about that. It's the power pop, catchy chorus and really unforgettable guitar. But anyway, this feels like almost like a Yes song, like when they were more psychedelic pop, because it has like all these weird skittish guitar chords. And I just got a bit confused about who Mrs. Adams was, which reminded me of like a Paul McCartney song, because he has a lot of songs dedicated to a character, but it's like, who is actually this character? Like, there were some points where I thought Mrs. Adams was like the owner of a shop to dedicate birthday parties to, and somewhere she was like this depressed like person who tried to kill themselves, and like the narrator's trying to cheer her up. I mean, the fact that this song got me thinking about that, and it had like nonsensical lyrics like a lot of 70s songs, I don't know, it really worked with me.
Besides that, I think I don't know. I love every track on this album. America.
Same.
America was the I think lead single or second single. I'm not really sure, but I remember listening to that before and not realizing this was part of the album. It's a really soundscape song. Like it creates a different atmosphere when you're listening to it. Like there's this they create some tension. It creates some like just love, some happiness. I don't know. I feel like this would be a great song that could be like in a movie soundtrack. They alternate between like innocent and threatening instruments. Like this is this jazz influence. That was probably my second favorite song, but I can't choose. I love every song on this record. It's wonderful.
I know what you mean. I like, as Cam, this is probably the one where like the most elements were just thrown together for you, maybe.
I mean,
Right.
Mrs. Adams or
America.
oh, sorry, you cut out there for a sec. Yeah, that one was definitely confusing, and I looked it up, and that one actually has some interesting write-ups about it. I mean, we don't want to go into that because then we'll just start quoting articles and stuff, but it definitely I think that helped me with the second listen through, like reading the article I did and how it talked about also like the music video that they made and how it like references Bowie, like it kind of finds one of the guys, I guess the lead singer probably, like taking on a Bowie character, or like looking like Bowie in some famous photo or something like that, and like just what it means for them to have done that so soon after his death, because this song was like released sometime last year, I guess. And so it just thinking about things like that and just helped me try gave me the tools I needed to really approach the album on their terms for the second time through, which helped. So I think that one and Mrs. Adams are probably going to be the ones that, if anything gets me into this album, it's probably going to be those two.
Yeah, America, I mean, this was the one I was thinking of when I said it had a lot of like Disney magic. I agree, Kush, that this could like be used for like a film soundscape sort of thing. And I don't know, it's just like a demented Christmas songs at some points.
Yeah,
I don't get what they're trying to do with this album, because sometimes it sounds like a sunshine summer album, like the first two songs, and then there's like this that's like a winter album, and it was released in the winter. I mean, they might have been recording it for a few years and created different moods, but I actually really like that because I don't know, it's just something different, something I wasn't expecting. Yeah, this one sounds like the Nutcracker Suite and like marching bands at some points, and then sounds like the Kinks. It goes into some like lounge sound, which was actually a big element of 70s pop, like people like Barry Manilow and that. Yeah, so songs like this just further the connections with like the 70s, 60s, and even earlier, and just make this like a really unique sounded album, like with all these elements together.
Yeah, besides that, I think my least favorite song was Trauma. Still love the song, but I think it was just on such a short album, it was just something that kind of was a dip, but I still really liked it, and I still listen to it like currently. But I think that was probably the one song that I said I wouldn't. That's the one song that I didn't like as much. But the song Rise Up, the very last one, it reminded me of John Lennon when he went solo.
Yeah.
Everything just sounded so gorgeous together. They added the electric guitars about a little bit in, and it worked so wonderfully. And God, I smiled like a fool the entire listen through this album. I love this so much.
Yeah, I think that Rise Up might actually have one of the most like happy and enjoyable guitar solos of the 2010s. Like, I know I'm not seeking them out like Cam said somewhere else, but whenever I hear them, I'm just so surprised to hear them. And this had such a good one. And yeah, the guitar solo reminded me of some of the ones in John Lennon's solo career. Another song we should probably talk about quickly is Upon a Hill. I didn't think I'd like this on first listen, because it's like a weird spoken word jazz pop interludes kind of thing, but it's actually like pretty fun. I mean, I've been listening to a lot of 10cc, who have a lot of like bizarro, weird, different time shifts in songs that like don't really make sense, but kind of sound bizarre and cool. So I kind of like that one. It was kind of more of a dance band sort of thing.
Yeah, Upon a Hill, I definitely liked it. Even the first listen through, I thought something they do really well on this album is just the whimsicality of it. It's a very whimsical album. They use a lot of things that people traditionally don't use for music. Like, well, I mean, maybe they did, but it's become outdated, or they're just not as popular anymore. And they brought it back, and they did it with such... I think they did it with a really well-produced way, so that it doesn't sound cheesy or rip-off. It sounds like their own sound, but also sounds enjoyable and fun. Any last thoughts, Cam?
I don't know. I can understand where you guys are feeling like the joy of it. Like, they really clearly enjoy what they're doing. They obviously have some great influences, and they love being able to recreate them on their own. But I feel like this is kind of like, I put in my notes that it feels like, I mean, we've been talking about how it's got lounge to it, but it feels like a Vegas lounge act. Just somebody who like does, or maybe not necessarily that, but just like, it feels like a review of the pop of the 60s and 70s, of just mashing all of these things together just because they can. And I think that's just what's keeping me at an arm's length. It's just, it doesn't sound like, I mean, it's just really hard to describe, because it's obviously unique, because nobody else is combining these sounds in this way today. But it's just, I feel like it's a bit of an overreach, or maybe a lot of an overreach, to be honest. So I'm going to try it again to be sure, but I'm not sure if I'm ever going to love it as much as you guys do.
I don't know what it is, but it sounds like it doesn't just get influence from 60s, 70s music, but I think it like almost magnifies it. Not saying it's like better or will ever mean more to people than a lot of those classic songs, but I don't know, in a short 30 seconds, they seem to like get most of what made the 70s good. And I think this could like be used as, I mean, no one should ever play this in like a history lesson, but there are elements of this where it just has so much of the 70s. Like, even some of these songs fade out. You don't really get that in modern music anymore. Like, a lot of songs just finish. But in the 60s and 70s, you'll get longer versions of all these songs because they all fade out. Most of them anyway. But yeah, I mean, an example of that here was Rise Up. I mean, it fades out like a 70s song. I don't know, I just really loved almost everything about this album. The only things I didn't like were just maybe even that it was a bit too short, and maybe that they could have done, I mean, if you're going to go this far out with 70s influence and experimenting it around like just haphazardly together, they could have done maybe a little bit more. But yeah, that would have been an overreach.
What would you rate it? I
would give it definitely an 8. Probably leaning more on the 9, but I'm going to give it an 8. Absolutely love this album. Definitely one I'll be returning to frequently. It just, like I said to begin with, it just sounds like it was tailor-made for me to enjoy it, and maybe I'm a deceptive, weak-minded fool for allowing it to win me over so easily, but if it just sounds like so much of the music I love from the 60s and 70s, I can't not love it. So yeah, 8.
Cam, what would you give it?
I'm just gonna give it a 6. I can tell that if the mental block is ever removed, it's probably gonna get jumped right up to an 8, but it's not there yet. There's still just something that I can't put my finger on, that just feels like, for lack of a better word, I can't even say insincere, because like I said, they sound like they love what they're doing, but it maybe forced. I don't know. I can't place it, so I might not ever be able to. I might actually come around to loving it soon or ever, but for now I can't really give it more than a 6.
Yeah, so for me it's a 9. It's a big old 9 in my book. I don't think I've smiled more during an album. I don't think I've just laughed and just tapped my foot more during an album. It was something that was catchy, it was fun, and they obviously love what they're doing, you can tell. I think this is a great sound that they're going for, and I'm just so impressed by what they came out with. And plus, the fact that it's a good old throwback to the good old days of music, I think, is a plus. But I think the main thing is that every song is unique, every song is diverse, and yes, they do take influences from a lot of different older artists, but I think they take the influences and mold it in a way where it's not over the top cheesy or just generic. I think they did a really good job with it.
Yeah, it was like they just took the best elements of the 70s, because there were some bad stuff, let me tell you, like sappy or adult contemporary or AOR. You don't hear any of that on here, but yeah, just for a love letter to arguably the best few decades in music, arguably, of course, it's all subjective. I really love this.
Yeah, I'm so glad that I listened to this album, and I really enjoy it.
Same. I think we can open the Foxygen fan club soon, Kush.
Yeah, I think I might have to.
I know. Find other people.
Okay, if that's it, then thanks for tuning in to Busted Speakers. Let us know how you feel about this album in the comments below. Like and subscribe if you enjoyed the video, and check us out on social media.